I thought I could fool him, that I was just a harmless pawn. But the moment the secret basement door slammed shut, I knew I had failed. He stood there, immense and cold, his amber eyes burning in the darkness. "What are you doing here, Sarah?" His voice wasn't a question. It was a verdict. He knew everything. That I was a spy. That I came here for my father, for Project Nightingale. The betrayal didn't sting as much as the truth. I was trapped. "You belong to me, Sarah, and those who dare threaten what is mine will pay the price." He launched into the shadows, fighting like a monster. Blood streaked his temple, but his eyes held only one focus: protecting me. In that chaotic moment, I realized I despised myself for being drawn to him. I was terrified of his possession, yet I craved the insane safety he provided. I couldn't escape this embrace. Is this love? Or the final binding? My life, Serafina Hayes' life, used to be a dull, almost boring routine. Until that fateful moment, when the police sirens tore through the quiet night, and my father, Arthur Hayes, the kindest man I knew, was dragged away in handcuffs. The charge: large-scale money laundering and fraud. A life sentence hung over his head, a verdict my heart screamed was unjust. Cold fear crawled up my spine, choking every breath. My family was shattered, our honor ruined. I knew, at any cost, I had to save him. I couldn't let my father rot in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Desperation led me to doors I should never have knocked on. One rainy evening, in a run-down bar on the city's edge, I met a man. He didn't give a name, only made an offer. His voice was gravelly and low, his eyes hidden in shadow, but I felt them as sharp as razors. "Your father will be released," he said. "In return, you'll work for us. A simple job. Housemaid at Nikolai Volkov's mansion." Nikolai Volkov. The name was a whispered curse, echoing in the city's darkest corners. A notorious Mafia boss, a man even the police treated cautiously. I knew I was diving into the abyss, but the faint hope for my father blurred all reason. I swallowed hard, the metallic taste of blood bitter in my mouth. "I agree," I whispered, my voice cracked. In that moment, I was no longer Serafina Hayes. I was a pawn, a spy, thrust into the den of a predator. The mysterious man gave me all the instructions. My task wasn't just to clean and serve. I had to search, to listen, to piece together information about some case, a secret deal, the very thing my father was wrongfully entangled in. The mansion was deeply secluded in the suburban hills, completely isolated from the outside world. The winding, pitch-dark road was like a colossal snake, finally leading me to a towering, black iron gate. It stood imposing, swallowing the last light of the sunset. When the heavy gate opened, I felt like I was stepping into another world, one where normal laws didn't exist. The headlights of this escort car swept across gray stone walls, antique statues, and towering ancient trees whose branches stretched like skeletal fingers. Panic rose to my throat, an uncontrollable trembling. Inside the mansion, everything exuded overwhelming luxury, yet a chilling coldness. The black marble floors gleamed, reflecting the light from magnificent crystal chandeliers, but it wasn't enough to dispel the pervasive gloom. Classic oil paintings hung on the walls, the soulless eyes of the subjects seeming to follow my shaky steps. The air was thick with the scent of fine wood, expensive cigarettes, and another subtle, indescribable odor. The smell of power, of danger. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a warning bell. I was just a small girl, lost in this golden cage. I wondered if I could survive, or if I would be crushed like a speck of dust beneath the heels of the powerful men here. The housekeeper, a stern middle-aged woman named Mrs. Petrova, met me. She had her hair pulled back neatly, her sharp eyes scanning me from head to toe, assessing every slight movement. "Miss Hayes," her voice was dry as rustling leaves, "remember the rule here. Eyes see, but do not perceive. Ears hear, but do not understand. Only perform your duties." Any curiosity will come at a price. The warning was like a sharp knife plunged into my mind. I bowed my head, my palms slick with cold sweat. Yes, ma'am. My room was small on the 3rd floor, with no window overlooking the splendid garden, only a tiny frame facing the back, looking out at an old brick wall. A single bed, an old wardrobe, and a simple dressing table. This was the only place I could breathe a sigh of relief, for now. I slid down onto the floor, my back against the door, closing my eyes. The image of my father in his cell was vivid. He was thin, his eyes sunken. The pain in my heart surged intensely. I had to succeed, no matter the cost. First day passed in extreme tension. I learned my tasks, cleaning, polishing the immense rooms. Every hallway, every door seemed to hold deadly secrets. I tried to memorize every minor detail, from the placement of vases to the arrangement of books on the shelves, hoping to find a clue. The feeling of being watched was constant, as if hundreds of invisible eyes were fixed on me. That evening, as I was dusting an antique oak table in the main living room, a deep, authoritative sound resonated from the staircase. A cold wave washed over me, raising the hairs on my neck. I looked up, and that was the first time I saw Nikolai Volkov. The man stood on the top step, like a dark deity who had just emerged from the underworld. His height was intimidating, his physique powerful yet possessing a strange elegance. A perfectly tailored black suit hugged his muscular body, highlighting his broad shoulders and narrow waist. His jet black hair was slicked back, revealing a high forehead and sharp, chiseled facial features, cold as if carved from marble. Most notably, his eyes. Amber eyes, deep and cold, concealed an undeniable ruthlessness, yet possessed a fatal attraction, a smoldering fire that seemed to burn everything it touched. He didn't say a word, only let his gaze sweep over me, but that look was enough to stop my heart. My whole body stiffened, the duster in my hand turning to stone. I felt naked, vulnerable under that probing, soul-penetrating gaze. He was the embodiment of danger, an apex predator. His scent permeated the air, a blend of patchouli, leather, and a sharp hint of mint, powerfully suffocating. A sudden noise came from the kitchen. Startled, the porcelain vase I was cleaning slipped from my hand. In a moment of terror, I saw it falling, certain to shatter into 100 pieces. The price for this carelessness? I dared not think of it. But then, a hand, quick as lightning, caught the vase just before it hit the floor. It was Nikolai Volkov's hand. Long, powerful fingers, yet moving with extraordinary finesse, clutched the precious porcelain. He didn't look at me, only gently placed the vase back in its original position. Then his amber eyes met mine again. This time, it wasn't just assessment. There was something else. Something inexplicable. A brutal coldness, but deep within it, I sensed a flicker of protection? I cursed myself for being crazy. How could a man like him protect someone like me? He still said nothing, just stood there, his presence overwhelming the entire space. I felt my face flush, the mixture of shame and fear making me want to disappear. I bowed my head extremely low, almost kneeling. I apologize, Mr. Volkov. I was careless. My voice trembled, tiny as a whisper. A soft escaped his throat, low and commanding. It wasn't a reprimand, but neither was it forgiveness. It was silent acceptance, an affirmation of absolute power. He turned his back and walked away. Every step echoed with the steady beat of his heels on the marble floor, like the drums of fate. I watched his broad back disappear behind the door, and I wondered, was that an act of salvation, or merely a demonstration of power by the man holding my life in his hands? The feeling of helplessness mixed with a bizarre safety from that small act chilled me. It was the beginning of a dangerous game I didn't want to play, but had been forced into. I was the prey, and he was the hunter. But in that moment, I felt inexplicably safe. A dark safety, wrapped in the presence of the man I should fear the most. The following days in the Volkov mansion passed in a whirl of tension and silent discoveries. My life, under the guise of a housemaid, was a complex dance between completing my duties and seeking information. Every morning, I woke before dawn, the small alarm clock ticking a quiet reminder of my true purpose here. In my simple black uniform, hair neatly tied back, I became an invisible part of this colossal, functional machine. I cleaned Nikolai's study, the most forbidden room for most staff. Fortunately, Mrs. Petrova seemed to trust my discretion, or simply didn't care. It was a vast room, decorated with dark oak and expensive leather. Nikolai's unique scent permeated the air, patchouli, leather, and something sharp like steel, like blood. On the glossy ebony desk, there was always an iPad, several classified file folders, and occasionally a casually placed gold-plated handgun. I never dared to touch anything, only using my eyes to memorize. My mission was to find the Red Ledger, a mythical red notebook in the underworld, rumored to contain classified information on transactions, bribes, and the darkest secrets of many gangs, including the case involving my father. The mysterious man told me the Red Ledger could be the key to proving my father was framed. Finding it among Nikolai's countless documents and possessions was like searching for a needle in a haystack. But I had to try. I began to pay attention to Nikolai's habits. He usually woke up late, around 9 a.m., and spent the entire morning in his study. Lunch was often served there, a simple yet refined meal, usually steak and red wine. In the afternoon, he often left the mansion in a sleek black luxury car, only returning late at night. Occasionally, impeccably dressed men with cold faces would visit. Their conversations always took place behind closed doors, in the library or the living room, their voices low, authoritative, words I couldn't make out clearly. Nikolai Volkov was an enigma. Sometimes, his amber eyes would sweep over me as I cleaned, utterly expressionless. But that look carried a weight that made me hold my breath. Occasionally, I sensed curiosity in his gaze, as if he was trying to read me, to strip away the deepest secrets I was hiding. I had to maintain an impassive expression, the perfect facade of a dedicated housemaid. One evening, as I was folding laundry in the utility room, I overheard Nikolai on the phone from the living room below. His voice was deep, commanding, but with a sharp edge I hadn't heard before. Yes, we've identified the source. Data's encoded Project Nightingale style. That bastard thinks he can outsmart me? Project Nightingale. The name etched itself into my mind. I'd vaguely overheard it from secret conversations my father accidentally revealed when he was a senior software expert. It was an extremely sophisticated encryption system, believed to be unbreakable. So, what I was looking for, what my father might have been exploited for, was part of Project Nightingale. This made me realize my father's case wasn't merely ordinary money laundering, but involved a much larger criminal network, and possibly an underworld turf war between gangs. The night I overheard that call, while climbing the stairs, I suddenly tripped on a step. The tray of expensive dishes in my hands wobbled, the crystal glasses clinking. I closed my eyes, bracing for the crash and the inevitable punishment. But once again, Nikolai's powerful hand appeared. The man not only caught the tray but also tightly grabbed my arm, steadying me from falling. My skin burned under his warm, solid fingers. Nikolai's distinct scent enveloped me, making my head spin. We stood close on the stairs. I only reached his shoulder. His breath lightly fanned my hair, carrying the scent of mint and wine. "Are you all right, Sarah?" His voice was low, no longer sharp as on the phone, but with a hint of concern, or at least a concern for his property. I didn't know, but it made my heart race. Yes. Yes, Mr. Volkov. I'm fine, I stammered, afraid to look up. I could feel his eyes tracing my face, studying every feature. That touch, that proximity, sent an electric current down my spine. I hated myself for being drawn to him. A ruthless mafia boss, A criminal, yet he could make me tremble not out of fear, but because of some forbidden emotion. He let go of my arm. "Be more careful," he said, his voice calm as if nothing had happened. Then he continued up the stairs, leaving me standing there, heart pounding, legs trembling. In my room that night, I couldn't sleep. Nikolai's gaze, his unexpected protection, haunted me. I recalled the mysterious man's words. Nikolai Volkov has one weakness. He is obsessed with protecting abused women and children. This sounded absurd for a man like him, yet his actions toward me, however small, seemed to confirm it. Was I one of the women he wanted to protect? Or was I simply fooling myself? I was a spy, and he was my target. This relationship could not possibly hold any tenderness or affection. Another evening, I discovered Nikolai had a secret room in the basement. The room wasn't on the mansion blueprints I was given. The door was cleverly concealed behind a large bookcase in the library. I waited until Nikolai had left, and after ensuring no one was around, I cautiously approached. With a bit of dexterity, I found the hidden latch, and the door slid open, revealing a dark staircase descending underground. The air below was damp and cold, carrying the smell of metal and earth. I turned on my phone flashlight, stepping down each stair. The secret room wasn't what I expected. Not a prison or a torture chamber. Instead, it was a state-of-the-art server room, with rows of computers, screens blinking with complex code. This was likely where Nikolai stored his biggest secrets. I quickly scanned the documents on the desk, but most were encrypted or written in technical jargon I didn't understand. However, on a red USB drive, I saw a small handwritten label. Nightingale Data. My heart hammered like a drum. This was it. This was what I needed. I knew I couldn't copy it immediately. The room surely had an alarm system. I could only memorize and sneakily photograph the most crucial documents. As I was about to leave, my eyes landed on a faded, old photo frame on the corner of the desk. It was a picture of a young woman, gently beautiful but with eyes that held sadness, and a tiny little girl. They looked strikingly similar to Nikolai. Beneath the photo was a handwritten inscription in faded ink. In memory of you, Elena, and our daughter, Anya. Justice will be served. Elena, Anya. A lingering sorrow emanated from the photo and the inscription. So, this was his weakness. Loss. His obsession with protecting harmed women and children. Was Elena the woman he failed to protect? The door suddenly slammed shut. I spun around, startled. The light from the staircase was extinguished. A towering figure stood right at the exit. Nikolai Volkov. He had returned earlier than anticipated. The cold of the basement seemed to penetrate my skin. He said nothing, but his amber eyes blazed in the darkness, cutting and cold to the bone. I had been caught. My whole body shook uncontrollably. I felt death imminent. And I wondered, was his gentleness toward me real, or just an illusion created to lower my guard? That question hung heavy in the cold, thick air, like a death sentence. The darkness in the secret basement seemed to swallow me, along with every shred of hope. I stood there, motionless, my heart pounding in my chest as if wanting to leap out. The only light was the weak flashlight from my phone, pointing directly at Nikolai Volkov's expressionless face. His amber eyes were the only thing I could clearly see in the dark. They were like two raging embers, burning away any remaining courage. "What are you doing here, Sarah?" His voice was low, devoid of any false tenderness. It was cold as a razor blade, piercing straight to the bone. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. I knew I couldn't lie. I couldn't deceive this man. I was looking for information, Mr. Volkov, I whispered, my voice pathetically shaky. The truth was laid bare, and I felt utterly ashamed. One step, then another. Nikolai advanced toward me, one step at a time, slow and menacing. I couldn't retreat. The wall behind me blocked any escape. His scent enveloped me, but this time it wasn't protection. It was the scent of ultimate danger, of an impending explosion of rage. What information? He stood right in front of me, so tall I had to crane my neck to see his face. His shadow covered me, turning me into a faint blur. I took a deep breath, trying to regain the last bit of composure. About Project Nightingale. About my father. Hearing the name Project Nightingale, a cold flash crossed Nikolai's eyes. Your father? He curved his lip into a smirk, full of contempt and ruthlessness. Serafina Hayes, did you think you could fool me? Did you think I'd let a spy wander around my house without knowing? My heart felt like it shattered. He knew everything. From the start. I was just a puppet in his hands. The sense of betrayal, of being used, surged along with extreme fear. You. You knew? Of course I knew, Nikolai said, his voice scornful. I know everything about you, Sarah. From the night you met that bastard in the dive bar, to why you accepted that foolish deal. Your father, Arthur Hayes, he's a genius, but too naive. He was framed by an organization I've been tracking for a long time. That organization wanted Nightingale data, a project your father himself developed, to hide their filthiest transactions. I was stunned. Everything I thought was my secret was an open book to him. Then, why did you let me stay here? Because you were useful, Nikolai answered bluntly, cruelly. You are an innocent little bird, caught in a trap. And you led me to that organization, the one trying to sabotage my empire. A small flicker of hope ignited in me, accompanied by dread. Can you help my father? Nikolai took a step back, his gaze sweeping over the old photo on the desk. Elena and Anya, he whispered, his voice suddenly subdued, filled with sorrow. It was the first time I saw a hint of vulnerability, a crack in his cold exterior. They were also caught in a similar scheme. I couldn't protect them. A surge of fury erupted in his eyes, burning everything. But I won't let that happen to you, Sarah. You are mine. And those who dare threaten what belongs to me will pay the price. Mine. That declaration wasn't a proclamation of love, but of absolute possession. It chilled me, yet held a strange allure, a crazy security I deeply craved. Suddenly, the alarm bells blared throughout the mansion, piercing and horrifying. Red lights flashed across the room. The basement door burst open. A rat smell! Mrs. Petrova's harsh voice echoed from upstairs, mixed with the faint sound of muffled gunfire in the distance. Nikolai whirled around, his face dark. They found their way here, he growled. The ones who framed your father. They want the ledger. And they want you. The man grabbed my wrist, forcefully pulling me to my feet. His strength was frightening. They will never have you, Sarah, he said, his voice cold and deadly. Nor will they have the red ledger. Before I could react, Nikolai pulled me into a corner of the room, hiding me behind a row of server cabinets. The sound of rapid footsteps, the shouting of unfamiliar men echoed from above. Find it. Find the ledger and the girl. Looks like they broke in through the side gate, Nikolai whispered into my ear, his hot breath on my neck, sending a shiver through me. They used suppressed weapons to take out the guards. They seemed to know the layout of this house well. Nikolai pulled a handgun from under his vest, a pitch-black Sig Sauer P2-26. The gun was cold and menacing in his strong hand. Stay here. Don't make a sound, he ordered, his eyes fixed on me with unwavering intensity. No matter what happens, don't leave until I return. I couldn't speak, only nod. Fear had frozen all my senses. I watched Nikolai's silhouette disappear up the dark stairs. The sound of gunfire immediately followed, continuous, mixed with shouts and crashes. The smell of gunpowder and acrid blood spread thickly in the air. I tried to hold my breath, hiding in the darkness, my heart pounding as if it wanted to tear through my chest. I heard Nikolai issuing orders in an icy, razor-sharp voice, interspersed with clashing sounds and gunshots. He was fighting. For me, for the Red Ledger, for a promise he made to himself that he would not let anyone under his protection be harmed again. After a while, the gunfire subsided, then completely stopped. A terrifying silence enveloped the mansion, only the faint, echoing alarm remaining. I was too scared to breathe. Was he okay? Was I safe? Suddenly, a figure appeared at the bottom of the stairs. It was Nikolai. His vest was torn. A streak of fresh red blood ran down his temple, staining his black hair. The scent of blood and gunpowder on him was overpowering. But his eyes were still blazing, full of victorious ruthlessness. He was not defeated. Nikolai quickly walked toward me, pulling me out of my hiding place. He said nothing, just stared at me. His hand touched my face, bloodied fingers lightly tracing my cheekbone, sending a shiver through me. I didn't know if it was his blood or his enemies. Sarah. His voice was low and rough, carrying fatigue, but also immense strength. He pulled me close, hugging me tightly. I felt the powerful rhythm of his heartbeat, the warmth of his body. Despite knowing he was a dangerous man, in that moment, I felt strangely secure. You belong to me now, he whispered into my ear, his voice full of possession. And no one can take what is mine. That declaration, amidst the wreckage and the smell of blood, held an haunting dark romance. I shivered, not from fear, but from another complex emotion. I was terrified of myself for craving that possession. I was horrified because I was beginning to feel that, deep inside, I didn't want to escape this man's embrace. And I wondered, was I falling in love, or was I falling into a deeper trap than I had ever imagined? After that terrifying night, the Volkov mansion was steeped in a heavy silence, unlike its usual imposing demeanor. The scent of gunpowder still lingered in the air, mingling with the metallic smell of dried blood, an incessant reminder of the battle that had just taken place. I still trembled every time I closed my eyes. The image of the fallen intruders, their lifeless eyes, haunted me. But above all, there was Nikolai, blood on his temple, his face cold, yet his eyes burning with a fierce protective fire for me. The next morning, I was ordered to clean the basement and the library. Bullet marks scarred the walls, shattered pieces of damaged furniture, and streaks of dried blood stained the marble floor. My every step was heavy, every heartbeat carried a sense of dread. I wondered, what did he do to dispose of all those bodies? I dared not ask, and no one told me. It was a secret buried in the darkness of this mansion. As I was cleaning the bloodstain on Nikolai's desk in the library, I noticed a deep cut on the back of his hand. The bleeding had stopped, but the wound was still red and painful. He sat there, one hand holding a glass of whiskey, the other rubbing his temple, his face fatigued but his eyes still sharp. Sharp, yet I sensed a rare vulnerability. Mr. Volkov, I said, whispering. Let me bandage your wound. He looked up at me, his amber eyes seeming to pierce through me. It's not necessary, Sarah. I'm not a child. But your wound needs cleaning, I insisted, not knowing where I found the courage. Perhaps it was the deep, unsettling concern in my heart. I didn't want him to get infected. Not because I loved him, I told myself, but because I needed him safe. Or at least, that's what I tried to believe. He was silent for a moment, then gave a slight nod. It was a reluctant permission. I went to fetch the first aid kit. When I returned, he had set down the whiskey and held out his injured hand. I gently cleaned the wound with antiseptic, and he didn't flinch, his face still cold as stone. But I felt the muscles in his arm tense under my fingertips. What is Project Nightingale? I asked, my voice soft, breaking the tense silence. Nikolai sighed softly, a strange sound escaping his throat. It's an encryption project your father developed to protect sensitive data for large organizations. But it was too powerful, too complex. The wrong people saw its potential. They approached your father, framed him into believing he was working for a noble cause, when in reality they were using him to access the source code. And the Red Ledger. What is it? The Red Ledger is the book containing records of every transaction, every criminal act of that organization, Nikolai said, his voice filled with loathing. I've been tracking them for years. They are the ones who took Elena and Anya from me. The man clenched his other fist, veins protruding on the back of his hand. His eyes shone with a profound, deep pain, an irreparable loss. His obsession with protecting abused women and children wasn't a weakness. It was a deep-seated scar in his soul, his strongest driving force. I looked at that scar, the scar of pain, the scar of loss, and I looked into his amber eyes blazing with the thirst for revenge. Somehow, I no longer felt afraid of him. Instead, there was an understanding. I had seen the real Nikolai Volkov, a man tormented by the past, driven by a dark purpose, but also possessing an absolute protection, an intense love for what he considered his. Your father will be exonerated, Nikolai said, breaking the silence. I've prepared everything. The evidence in the Red Ledger, combined with my testimony, will prove his innocence. But in return... He paused, his eyes fixed on me, as if trying to read every corner of my soul. You will stay here. With me? With you? I whispered, my voice trembling. It wasn't a question. It was acceptance. A sentence and a promise. Nikolai nodded. You know too much. You have become part of this world, and you are mine. His voice was possessive, but I was no longer horrified. Instead, a strange peace spread through me. I had fought against this attraction. I had been horrified by these forbidden emotions, but now I couldn't deny it any longer. I had accepted my fate, accepted becoming a part of this man, the one who framed my father. Will he pay? I asked, my voice sounding stronger than I expected. I wanted justice for my father, and I wanted the one who heard him punished. Absolutely, Nikolai said, a cold smile appearing on his lips. I've sent him to a place no one can find. A place where he will face his worst nightmares, every single day. His ruthlessness was terrifying, yet in my eyes, it was a dark form of justice. One evening, as I was preparing a light meal for Nikolai, he walked into the kitchen. His eyes swept over me, resting on my hands as I chopped vegetables. Sarah, he called, his voice low, no longer commanding. I looked up. He approached, taking my hand. His rough fingers lightly traced the calluses on my palm, then paused on my hardened fingertips. You don't belong here. Where do I belong? I asked, my voice husky. You belong where I can protect you, he said, his amber eyes looking directly into mine, deep and intense. From now on, you will do no work other than being by my side. My heart pounded. It was a declaration, an affirmation of ownership. I didn't know whether I should feel frightened or liberated. But one thing I knew for sure, I couldn't resist this man's dark allure. His scent of patchouli and leather enveloped me, making me dizzy. I closed my eyes, a single tear tracing a path down my cheek. A tear of surrender and also acceptance. After that night, everything changed. I was no longer the housemaid. Nikolai kept me by his side, not as a prisoner, but as a companion. He took me to discreet meetings, where I heard him negotiate, give orders, and run his underworld. I became his eyes and ears in some instances. I used my observational and analytical skills, helping him piece together information, something he had recognized even before I revealed myself as a spy. I knew I was walking a dangerous path, a path with no exit. But every time Nikolai looked at me, his gaze soothed every fear within me. He might be a monster, but he was my monster. One afternoon, as I was sitting and reading in the library, Nikolai walked in. He said nothing, only sat down opposite me. His eyes softened unusually as he looked at me. Your father has been released, he said. My heart nearly stopped. I looked up, tears welling up. Really? He nodded. He's been exonerated. Evidence was undeniable. The ledger did its job well. A wave of relief and gratitude surged through me. The pain vanished, replaced by an unspeakable joy. I stood up, rushing toward him. Without thought, without hesitation, I threw my arms around him. Nikolai was momentarily stunned, but then he wrapped his arms around me tightly. His scent, his strength, enveloped me. I felt safer than ever. "Thank you," I whispered, burying my face in his chest. "Thank you for everything." He didn't say anything, only held me tighter. His breath lightly fanned my hair. In that moment, I knew my life had forever changed. I was no longer the frightened, naive girl. I was a part of this dark world, a part of Nikolai Volkov. And I didn't want to go back. And I wondered, was this liberation or the final binding of a forbidden love? I didn't know. I only knew that I didn't want to escape this embrace. Dawn broke over the green hills, golden sunlight streaming through the large window in Nikolai's bedroom, painting sparkling streaks on the wooden floor. I lay in his embrace, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath my back. The familiar scent of patchouli and leather enveloped me, no longer a threat, but a strange sense of peace. I turned my head, looking at his face as he slept. The usual coldness had vanished, replaced by serenity, even a hint of deep, hidden vulnerability. I softly touched the scar on his temple, the scar from that night, the scar of sacrifice and protection. The night had passed, and with it, the gunshots, the threats, the deadly secrets. My father, Arthur Hayes, was free. The evidence from the red ledger, the information I gathered, and especially Nikolai's powerful intervention, had exposed the other organization's plot. Dark justice had been served the Nikolai Volkov way. He had protected me, not only from those who wanted to exploit my father, but also from myself, from my own naivety and weakness. I slipped out of his embrace, stepping off the bed. The spacious, luxurious room no longer felt suffocating. It was my home. The window was open, letting in the cool breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers. I looked out at the vast garden, the tall, ancient trees. In the distance, the first rays of morning sun were painting the mountains, creating a breathtakingly peaceful scene. This was a life I never dreamed of. A life in the dark, yet containing an intense and fiercely protective love. Nikolai stirred, then softly opened his eyes. His amber eyes immediately found me. A gentle, very rare smile touched his lips. "Good morning, Sarah." His voice was deep, husky, and warm. I smiled back. "Good morning, Nikolai." I no longer called him Mr. Volkov. Proximity had erased all barriers. "What are you thinking?" he asked, reaching out his hand, gesturing for me to come closer. I turned back, sitting on the edge of the bed, taking his hand. "About my father. He's got a fresh start. And about us." Nikolai squeezed my hand tightly. "Your father is safe. I've insured it. As for us..." He paused, his eyes looking straight into mine, deep and meaningful. "We have a long road ahead, Sarah. This path won't be easy. It's full of peril and difficult choices. But you will never face it alone." That promise wasn't a guarantee of a simple, peaceful life. It was a promise of a challenging future, but I would have this man by my side. This man, whom I had once feared, whom I was once tasked to spy on, was now the only one I trusted, the only one I wanted to be with. I had been horrified by my attraction to his darkness, but now I realized that darkness was a part of him, and a part of me too. I had accepted it. "I know," I said, my voice resolute. "And I'm not afraid." Nikolai smiled. That smile was a blend of ruthlessness and tenderness, a perfect synthesis of who he was. "Good," he said. "Because from now on, we will rebuild everything. We will create a new empire, Sarah. One where no one dares to harm what we cherish. No one dares to destroy what is ours. His voice was powerful and unwavering. I looked at his hand, his long and powerful fingers, the fingers that had saved me from the abyss, held a gun to protect me, and now were tightly gripping mine. This was not a fairy tale with a prince and princess. This was a darker, more truthful story. A story of survival, of atonement, and of a love born from ashes and danger. "You are my conscience, Sarah," Nikolai said, his voice a whisper, like a confession. "And I won't let anyone hurt you." Anyone. I rested my head on his shoulder, taking a deep breath of his scent. I knew my life had turned a new page, full of unknowns, but also full of hope. I didn't know what the future held. Could we find happiness in this world full of violence and crime? Could I truly trust this man, his dark protection? But as I looked out at the rising sun, seeing the long road ahead, I didn't feel afraid anymore. I felt ready. Ready for every challenge. Ready for every danger. Because I had him. And he had me. And as Nikolai lightly kissed my hair, I wondered, was this the beginning of a new fairy tale? A story written in blood, in secrets, and in a love so strong it could conquer all darkness? I didn't have the final answer. I only knew that the new door had opened, and I was ready to step through. One thing was certain. Our story, Serafina Hayes and Nikolai Volkov's story, had just begun. And it would be a story that the world would shudder at, yet be unable to stop watching.